Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really weird modern phenomenon. We're going to look at why sitting in true, absolute silence feels so incredibly uncomfortable for us today, and how doing nothing actually triggers our brain's ancient vigilance system. If you've ever felt that phantom itch to just do, well, something when things get a little too quiet, I promise you're not alone. Let's jump right in and see exactly why that happens.
So picture this. Imagine you sit down in a chair. You place your phone face down on the table, completely out of reach. There's no music playing, no TV on in the background. You have absolutely nothing to look at but a blank wall, just you, and a completely empty, quiet room. Why is this such an incredibly hard thing for most of us to do? Why does the mere thought of just a few minutes of absolute nothingness spark actual, genuine dread? Think about what happens within, say, a minute or two of sitting there. Your leg starts to bounce. Your posture shifts around. You reach for your phone. Actually, scratch that. You don't even consciously reach for it. Your hand just kind of instinctively, almost magically, drifts toward that screen on autopilot. Your body is just reacting. Most people simply cannot sit in true silence doing absolutely nothing for more than a few minutes without feeling this deep, genuine discomfort. But it turns out, the real reason we do this goes way, way deeper than just a modern bad habit or a simple tech addiction. Now, we love to blame our overstimulated modern lives for this restlessness, right? We tell ourselves we just have too many apps, too much noise, and our minds are totally spoiled by modern convenience. But the reality? Your brain's ancient vigilance system is firing off in a room that simply doesn't have anything left to scan. You see, silence and stillness were never meant to be neutral, safe states for a human brain. For basically all of human history, an unoccupied mind was a mind that was actively and desperately scanning the horizon for threats. To see just how deep this discomfort goes, let me tell you about this fascinating 2014 study by psychologist Dr. Timothy Wilson, which was published in the Science Journal. His research team asked participants to sit alone in a bare room for 6 to 15 minutes. Their only instruction? Have absolutely nothing to do but think. No phone, no books, no pen and paper, nothing. Just their own thoughts. Most participants, totally unsurprisingly, rated the experience as deeply unpleasant. But then, the researchers added a twist to the experiment that truly exposed how our minds work. They gave the participants an out. They put a button in the room that, if pressed, would deliver a mild but painful electric shock. Get this, when given the option, a staggering 67% of men and 25% of women actually chose to self-administer a mild electric shock rather than just sit there in the quiet. Think about that for a second. Some participants even shocked themselves multiple times. They literally proved we will choose physical pain over an unoccupied mind. Insane, right? Which naturally leads us to a massive, fundamental question. Why on earth would a human brain be built this way? Why does our biology reject silence so aggressively that we'd rather be shocked than bored? To understand this, we have to zoom way out. We have to look at the massive evolutionary mismatch between the wild, highly unpredictable world we evolved in and the comfortable, climate-controlled modern rooms we sit in today. Anthropologist Dr. Sarah Blaffer-Hurdy's research explains that early human survival required constant environmental and social monitoring. You were always tracking allies, keeping an eye out for rivals, and hunting for resources. In an ancient environment, a brain that stopped scanning was a brain uniquely vulnerable to approaching predators. Stillness wasn't a safe state of zen, it was just a brief pause between one scan and the next. Fast forward to today. In a modern environment, stillness just means you're completely safe in your living room. But the problem is, your ancient alarm system hasn't received that update. So what's actually happening under the hood when the room goes quiet? To figure that out, we look at neuroscientist Dr. Marcus Reichel's discovery of something called the default mode network. And this is a real game changer, because it proves that doing nothing is rarely metabolically restful. When you aren't actively focused on an external task, like reading an email or watching a show, your brain doesn't just power down into sleep mode. In fact, this default mode network activates and can consume nearly as much energy as intense, focused, task-oriented thinking. Instead of switching off in silence, the brain essentially switches onto itself. When that external noise stops, the default mode network kicks in and brings up a very specific list of items: self-referential thought, memory replay, and social rehearsal. It brings up your unresolved worries. It replays those awkward old conversations from 5 years ago that you wish went differently. It surfaces all the unfinished business that you are desperately trying to avoid during your busy day. Basically, silence forces you to face your own internal backlog. Now, the discomfort you feel when that network kicks in is absolutely real, yes, but so is its purpose.
Historically, anthropologists note that these unstimulated hours, waiting out a rainstorm, walking long distances, or quietly foraging, were absolutely crucial for processing grief, planning for the future, and generating creative solutions. That idle brain is actually doing heavy lifting in the background. It's sorting through the complexity of your life, making vital connections, even when it feels like it's doing nothing at all.
But here's where we run into a major modern roadblock. The counterintuitive twist is that our modern devices are specifically engineered to intercept our discomfort before the default mode networks can actually finish its work. Researchers refer to this as cognitive interruption at the earliest possible point. Our tech is designed to give us a frictionless escape hatch the very millisecond that ancient itch of silence begins. We never have to sit through the discomfort anymore.
When you put these two cycles side by side, the modern trap becomes incredibly obvious. Historically, an idle brain engaged the historical loop. It turned the initial discomfort of silence into a processed memory or a plan, which eventually resulted in an actual insight. Today, that modern itch gets instantly interrupted by a notification. We feel the discomfort, we check our phones, the processing completely stops, and the cycle just restarts. It leaves us with this chronic, faint sense that absolutely nothing was actually resolved. Think about it in the context of your own life. Multiply this interrupted cycle by every single quiet moment in your day. Waiting for a bus, standing in line at the grocery store, lying awake in bed right before sleep. Those tiny pockets of time used to be where our brains caught up. Now it becomes clear how rarely the modern mind gets the uninterrupted time it needs to finish its own internal processes. What once resolved into a profound insight or a solid plan for tomorrow now often resolves into absolutely nothing at all.
So, what does this all mean for us? Well, the next time you feel that desperate itch to reach for your phone in a quiet room, try to pause. Remember that this restlessness is not a personal flaw. It's not just a bad habit or a tech addiction. It's an ancient, careful system trying to do its job. It's just trying to scan the horizon, process your memories, and think things through, leaving us with one final question to chew on. Will you finally let it finish?